Hey, what up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chav Beis of Masechta Yoma, and boy, do I have a daf for you. Starting the second perek of Masechta Yoma. Yeah, super interesting Mishnah, interesting Gemara, Agadatas, has to do with how they would decide who can do the Trumas Hadeshen. A lot of other interesting things come up along the way. Let's get started. Daf Chav Beis Amud Aleph, all the way at the top of the daf. New Mishnah, new Perek, new day, new daf. Barishona Misha, Kol Misha, Rotza Lisra mizbeach Torim. Okay. So initially, how would they determine who does the Trumas Hadeshen in the morning? So, of course, we know about these lotteries that would happen, but once upon a time, they actually didn't use the lottery system for Trumas Hadeshen. Rather, Kol Misha, Rotza Lisra mizbeach Torim. Anybody who wanted to do the Trumas Hadeshen could do it. Okay. Now, if there were a lot of people who wanted to do the Trumas Hadeshen, so Rotzin v'olin ba'kevesh, so they would race. The ramp of the mizbeach was 32 amas, enough for a race, and they would mamish race up the ramp of the mizbeach, and whoever gets to the top first wins. Whoever is the first one to reach within 4 amas of the mizbeach wins, and he gets to do the Trumas Hadeshen that morning. And if it was a tie, Hamamuna Omer Loen Hatzbiu. So the Mamuna, the one who's in charge over there, he says, all right, well, we have to do like a vote kind of thing. We have to do like a 21st finger is it, so to speak. So, and interestingly, it seems according to Rashi and according to Pshat, I guess, is that meaning, so whoever's there would participate in this race. Whoever would win would do the Trumas Hadeshen, and if it was a tie between two parties, so then everybody would sort of get into this like 21st finger is it kind of thing. So the Mamuna, the guy in charge over there, he would say, okay, everybody put out a finger. Umayin motzin, achos u'shtayim. And then what would they put out over there? Either one finger or 2 fingers. Vein motzin agudal ba'mikdash. And they don't put out a thumb in the Beis HaMikdash. The thumb was off limits in the Beis HaMikdash because it could be used for being tricky. Because what happens if you're like a Kohen and you want to really do the Trumas Hadeshen, and you see that the numbers are not going to land on you, but if you stick out an extra finger, then maybe you could trick them and you'll double dip, you'll get 2 fingers, and then maybe it'll taka land on you. So maybe you'll stick out your thumb, which is further away from the other fingers, and it can look like it's a separate finger. Anyways, very, very sneaky. So you don't want people to be sneaky. So no thumbs in the Beis HaMikdash. All right. So there was an incident where you had 2 Kohanim, neck and neck, Pashit, neck and neck on the ramp of the Mizbeach. V'ratzim v'olim ba'kevesh, and they're running up the ramp. V'dachav echod me'enes chavero. One of them, Taka, pushed his friend. V'nafal, and he fell off the ramp, or maybe he fell on the ramp, unclear. V'nishbu araglo, and he broke his leg. V'chevin sharo bezdin shaboin l'dei sakana. And when Bezdin saw, okay, maybe the races are getting a shtickle out of hand, so they said, all right, from now on, we have to use a lottery. There were 4 lots that they would do every day in the Beis HaMikdash, and this was the first one. Very, 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 very interesting story, right? So interesting. To see also how rules kind of develop on their own. Things kind of start kind of open and lax, and then kind of over time, more and more rules get applied. So at the beginning, they would decide to do the Trumas Hadeshen. It was a race. It was fun. But already they had to, that didn't last too long. Okay, Zakti Gemara, Meikara, my time lo takinu la rabbanim payasa. Fact the Gemara, how come they didn't just always have lots? Like, it's not like they didn't do lots for anything. They would do lots for everything, just not for the Trumas Hadeshen. So why was Trumas Hadeshen the exception to the rule? Meikar Savur came in the Avodas Lailai, Loch Shivalu Velo Asu. Well, they thought that maybe initially, this isn't Avodas Hayom, this isn't the work that's done during the day, it's just, it's done at night, whether maybe at the end of the night, maybe in the middle of the night, whatever it is. But they thought that maybe it wouldn't be regarded as highly as maybe like the, Talmud Shel Shachar or something like that. So they thought that it wouldn't be so popular and they wouldn't really need a whole vote. Like, if only one person shows up, we'll let him do it. If a few people show up, whoever gets there first can do it. They'll run up the ramp. So they figure we don't need a lot. But then when they saw, okay, people really are coming to do the Trumas Hadeshen, and take, it's leading to people getting hurt. So takinulu la payasa. So they said, you know what, we should really institute a lot over here. But what about burning of the fats and the limbs of the korbanis that the Zrika Saddam was already done during the day? You could burn them all night. The avodas lailahi, which is work that's done at night, v'takinu la rabbanim payoso, and that has a lot. So if the reason why they didn't initially have lots for Trumas Hadeshen was because it was done at night, it's a night avoda, well then shouldn't hekter, chalavim ve'varim also not have to have a lot? So, and for the Gemara, so if avoda the Yoma, that burning the fats and the limbs is ultimately really the end of the culmination of the work of the day, right? Now you have these animals that they were offered during the day, and we didn't chaparain, we didn't finish burning them during the day, so we could burn them throughout the night. So it's really, at its core, it's really an avoda from the day that is continuing into the night. So that was already considered more mechubad, and there was a lot of demand for it, and that's why they had a lot. But the svara was that they thought that truma, that would not be the case by Trumas Hadeshen. Perfect the Gemara. But one second, what's Trumas Hadeshen? Trumas Hadeshen isn't exactly a nightly avoda. It's the first avoda of the day. Dam Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan had gesagt, Kidesh Yadav l'Sumas Hadeshen, if a fellow did, he washed his hands and his feet so that he could do the Trumas Hadeshen, l'machar in tzarich l'kadesh, so then the following day, he does not need to do Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim anymore. Shekvar Kiddush mitchilas avoda, because he already did Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim at the beginning of the avoda. So we see that Trumas Hadeshen is essentially the beginning of the avoda, the first of the avoda of the day. Alright, so the Gemara says, well, maybe just say it a little differently. Don't say that it was already kadosh from the beginning of the avoda, but rather say that you already made it kadosh, right? Shekvar kiddush initially, so that later on he'll be able to do avoda, but this is not necessarily considered the beginning of the avoda. Alright, fine. Very good. Alright, so according to this one, we want to argue that Trumas Hadeshen is a nightly, is sort of more associated with the night, and they thought that therefore would be considered less in the eyes of the Kohanim, would be less exciting, and people wouldn't show up necessarily. But in the end, we saw that people did show up, and they would get physical in that race, which is very, very interesting. You would think, it's the mizbeach, right? You think everybody would be very, very holy, but lemaisa, you have to win the race. What do you want me to tell you? I don't care that it's mizbeach. Very interesting. We're going to see a story tomorrow, Mistama, that things got even more bloody dartin on that ramp to the mizbeach. I guess they weren't only animal sacrifices dartin. Alright, let's go weiter. You get the armor that those who say meikar savur. There's another view, which is that, well, initially the thought was given the ika ones sheina lo asu. Okay, this I'm sure we can relate to. That initially the svara was, well, who's going to wake up at the crack of dawn for the Trumas Hadeshen? Okay, the other things are a little bit later. Who's going to wake up super early? You're sleeping. Enjoy your sleep. Lo asu, that they're not going to come. Came the chazud asu, because asu. But then they saw that, no, they are coming, even though it's early. So, Rabbi Yochanan, 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 Rabbi Yochanan that it's becoming dangerous because of this competition. Takinu la Rabbanon Payasa, the rabbis decided, okay, we should really organize things a little better with a lot. But what about the fats in the limbs that they burn all night, and there is a lot? But wouldn't you think that people want to go to sleep at night, and they're not going to want to do the burning of the fats in the limbs, and maybe you don't need to have a lot for that? So shiny migana mimekum. Aha. So the Gemara says, well, there's a difference between waking up and going to sleep. Apparently, the assumption is that, pushing off sleep for, to say, look, there's something to do, I'm just going to go to sleep later, is a little bit, people are more willing to do that than to say, oy vey, I got to wake up super early. Lemaisa, I'm the opposite, Lemaisa. I'm an early riser, but I don't. The thought of going to sleep too late just throws me off schedule, Let's go weiter. Okay, so we say that, okay, Truma, they figured Truma Sadeshin was early. People wouldn't show up. Therefore, they didn't need to make a lot, because it'll be pretty easy to figure out who's going to do it. In the end, they saw that people are coming, and they do need to organize things. But then the Gemara says, 1 second, is that why they instituted the lot? I thought that they instituted the lot for the following reason. Tanya, as we learn in Bryce that somebody whoever gets the zchus of doing the Trumas Hadeshin in the morning, he not only got to do the Trumas Hadeshin, but additionally, he got to organize the wood on the pyre of the altar, as well as put there, there was 2 slats of wood that they would also put there. So in addition to doing the Trumas Hadeshin, he would also be able to do these additional jobs. And therefore, for those additional jobs, we should have to have a lot. And therefore, I would think that the institution of lots for the Trumas Hadeshin wasn't necessarily because of this incident. The institution of lots for Trumas Hadeshin is because along with the Trumas Hadeshin, you also have the organizing of the wood on the mizbeach, and therefore you should need lots for that in any event. Rav Ashi says actually it was a 2-staged thing. So initially they thought people weren't going to show up in the morning because it's early. Either because it's early or because it was a nighttime avodah, whatever it is. And then once the rabbis realized that the Kohanim are coming to do the Trumas Hadeshin, and it's taka becoming dangerous, this sort of just whoever gets there first wins system. So takinu la payasa, they said, all right, we have to organize things with a lottery. Well, then guess what happened? Well, then, once they instituted a lottery for it, then people said, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to come. There's no guarantee that I'm going to win the lottery. Right? We all know about the lottery. Most people don't win. So therefore, they stopped coming. So initially, there was such high demand that people were getting hurt. Then they said, okay, we have to do the lottery. Then people stopped coming. So in the end, they said, you know what? So what they did actually really was that initially there was no lottery. And then whoever came, would be able to do it, and they would have the race, whatever. Then they said, you know what, this is dangerous, we have to have a lottery. But then because of the lottery, people stopped coming. So in response to that, they added in, you know what, if you do the Trumas Hadeshin, you can also do the Siddur Ma'aracha V'Shnei Gzirei Eitzim, and that kind of brought the people back. They had the lottery, and whoever did it got this very sort of, big job of doing the Trumas Hadeshin, plus the Siddur Ma'aracha and the Shnei Gzirei Eitzim. So, but the institution of the lots was in response to that, to things becoming too dangerous. Says the Gemara, V'zman she'en mirubin v'chulei. So we said in our Mishnah that if there were many Kohanim who showed up to do the Trumas Hadeshin before they instituted the lots, so they would have this race. So Papa wants to know, Amar Papa Pshita li arba amas de ara lo. Rotzen v'olim bakevish tanan. Okay. Says Rav Papa, okay, obviously, Rav Papa's trying to figure out which 4 amas. The ramp of the mizbeach was 32 amas long. We're talking about the first 4 amas. Maybe it's the 4 amas before the ramp even starts. Maybe it's the last 4 amas. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. So Papa says, which 4 amas are we talking about? That whoever gets to these 4 amas, he gets to do the Truma Sadeshin. So Rav Papa Pshita li arba amas de ara lo. Says Rav Papa, okay, it's clear to me that we are not talking about the 4 amas before the ramp even starts on the ground. It says that they go up on the ramp. So we must be talking about on the ramp. Okay, what about Kamaisa Namilo? But also the first 4 amas of the ramp itself, no way. Well, it says that they got to run up on the ramp, and then whoever precedes his friend. I don't know, I guess somehow that implies that it can't be the first 4 amas. Maybe they have to have enough room to kind of move forward, I guess. All right. Well, I guess maybe you actually have to get a little bit further on the ramp. Like it can't just be the first 4 amas. It has to be further than the first 4 amas. You have to get to past the first 4 amas, I guess. All right. And also it can't be talking about some 4 amas part in the stretch, the sort of longer stretch of the mizbeach, because where is that? It's not clear. We have to have an objective point, not just somewhere in the middle of the ramp. So pshitali degabe mizbeach tanan. Okay, so therefore Rav Papa says, look, it's obvious to me when we say that whoever gets within 4 amas, it means within the 4 amas closest to the mizbeach. Once whoever gets within 4 amas of the mizbeach first, of like the top of the ramp, about to get to the mizbeach, that fellow can do the Truma Sadeshin. By Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, look, lemaisa, this is my kasha though. Arba amas sha'amu b'hadei amav yisod v'ama sovev odilma bar me ama yisod v'ama sovev. What do you think the Gemara answers? Teku. Rav Papa wants to know, when we say 4 amas, does it, on the mizbeach, so around the mizbeach there was the sovev and there was also the yisod. Like different steps. Like the yisod, of course, was that part of the mizbeach that went around it on the ground, on the north and western sides, and 1 amma on the eastern and southern sides, respectively. And that was 1 amma high and out. And then also the sovev kind of extended out of the mizbeach another amma. So the question is basically, when we say 4 ammas, does that mean 4 ammas within the mizbeach, excluding, in addition to the amma of the yisod and the amma of the sovev, so really 6 amos out? Or is it including those, in which case it's just 4 amos out from the top? The Gemara says, ich weiß nicht. Let's go weiter in Shas. Where am I? Did I say? I went back. Okay. So, there we are. Now, Zogt the Gemara v'm hayushneim shavan avamuna omer loy matzbiu v'chulei. So if there was a tie, so then the person in charge would say, right, the mamuna. Who is the mamuna? Was he the skan kohen gadol? I'm not exactly sure, honestly, but he was the person in charge over there in the Beis Hamikdash. Let's see, does Likutei Rashi actually say anything? But he would say anything? No. He would say, okay, so let us do like a 21st finger is it type of thing. So Tana, Hotziu etzbo seichem leminyan. So it was taught, what it means is that stick out your fingers, and everybody puts out a finger, and then I think Rashi explains on the Mishnah that then the Kohen would just choose, this Memuna would just choose like a random number, and then he would take off the hat from one of the Kohanim, and that's how he would know that he's starting with this Kohen, and then he would go around and count everybody's fingers until he got up to that magic, to the number that he decided, and that's how whoever it landed on would be the one to do the Truma Sadeshin. And I believe that that's how they would do all of the lots in the Beis Hamikdash, like these 4 lots. So v'nimninu lididu fekti Gemara. How come we have to count the fingers? Why can't we just count the people? Misayele l'Rabbi Yitzchak. Well, this supports Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak also limnos es Yisrael afilu dvar mitzvah. You're not allowed to count Yidden, even if it's for a mitzvah, like to figure out who's going to do the Trumas Hadeshin. And interestingly though, but you are allowed to count their fingers, which is interesting. You can't count them, but you can count their fingers. Okay? The Chsiv, as the Pasuk says, Vayifkedem b'bazok, that he counted them with broken shards of pottery, that he didn't want to count the people, rather count the shards. Maskiv Rashi asks a kasha, Mimayda dai bazok lishna de mibazek hu. Rashi asks, how do you know that when it says vayifkedem bebazok, it means shards of pottery? V'dom shma de masahu kidichsev vayimtzu adoni vezek bevezek. Maybe when it says vayifkedem bebazok, it's the name of a place that he counted them in bazok, not that he counted shards of pottery. So rather says Rashi, we learn from here, vayishama shol esa'am vayifkedem betloim, that Shaul made a proclamation to the nation, and then he counted them with sheep. He didn't count them; he counted the sheep. That were, each sheep represented a fellow. Amr Belazar says, Belazar kol amona es Yisrael over Bala. Says Belazar, if a fellow counts Yidden, he violates a negative commandment. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Vayimispar b'nei Yisrael kachol hayom, that the numbers of the Yidden will be like the sand of the sea, asher lo yimad, that will not be measured. So if you measure them, if you count them, then you are violating this mitzvah slosa say of lo yimad. Rav Nachum bar Yitzchak Amar over b'shnei laivin. Nachum bar Yitzchak says that he violates 2 transgressions. Shenemar, the pasuk says lo yimad v'lo yisofer. It says that you shouldn't measure it and you shouldn't count it. So we see it's 2 things. And if you count Yidden, so you're violating 2 transgressions. Amr B'Shmuel bar Nachmani says B'Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonasan Rami. Rabbi Yonasan asked the following question. Ksiv, on the one hand, the pasuk says, "V'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kachol hayom." On the one hand, the pasuk says that the number of the Yidden will match the number of the sand of the sea, which means that you're going to be able to count them. It might be a lot, but there'll be a finite number. But then it says that it will be unmeasurable and uncountable. So is it countable or is it not? It depends. If the Yidden are doing what God wants, so then they will be uncountable, infinite. But if the Yidden are not doing what the Eibishter wants, so then they will be countable. They will not be infinite. Rabbi Omar says, Rabbi Mishum Abba Yossi ben Dostoi. Lokasha, it's no question. Can be the Adam, can be the Shemaim. It depends. Yidden would be unable to count. The Eibishter can count. Okay. Omer Rabni Aloi bar Idi Omer Shmuel. Kevin Ismano Adam Parnas al Tzibur Masasher. Okay. Says Rabni Aloi bar Idi in the name of Shmuel that once a fellow becomes a leader, takes on a leadership role in the community, he becomes wealthy. Very, very, very interesting. Meikar Ksiv, it says initially, Vayifkedem bebazok, Levasov Ksiv, Vayifkedem betloim. Initially, it says, I think this was by Shaul, that initially he counted them with pottery shards, and in the end it says that he counted them with sheep. So we see that initially all he had was pottery shards, but in the end he had sheep. But who says that he owned all the sheep? Well, if he didn't own all the sheep, then what's the chiddush? The whole chiddush is that he owned all the sheep, and he became a leader, and he became very wealthy. Alright, very nice. The pasuk says that Shaul HaMelech fought with the Amalekites, with Amalek in the Nachal, in the stream, in the valley. Amr Rabmani says Rabmani al iske Nachal. So there's a drash here. What does it mean that Shaul HaMelech fought with Amalek in the valley? No, where else do we see in the Torah a valley? Nachal Eson, a desolate valley in by the Egla Arufa. By the Egla Arufa. So listen to this drasha. Rabmani says, Rabmani al iske Nachal, that Shaul was arguing with God regarding matters related to a valley, Egla Arufa. When God said to Shaul, go and smite Amalek, Omar, he said, "Uma nefesh achas amatora have egla arufa." If just for one fellow who was found dead between two cities, we do this whole thing where we bring an egla arufa, where we bring a calf and we chop its head off. Well, all of these people, if even for one person we have this whole thing with an egla arufa, I should go and kill so many people. And even if a fellow sinned, what did the animals do? Why should we have to kill the animals? And if the elders, if the older people, the adults sinned, what did the children do? So then a voice came out from heaven and said, Shaul, don't be so righteous. Don't be such a tzaddik. Just listen to God. And then when Shaul gave the order to Doeg Adomi to kill all the Kohanim and Novir Kohanim, now God had his turn to say, Yotzabasko v'amarlo altir shaharbe. A voice came out from heaven and said to Shaul, hey, Mr. Tzaddik, who tried to be such a big tzaddik when it came to Amalek, don't be such a big Rasha. Don't kill all these Kohanim in Nov. Ravuna says, Ravuna kama lochali v'lo margish gavadamari sayoy. Very, very interesting. Says Ravuna, he says, look, it's good to be liked by God, right? Kama lochali v'lo margish. A person doesn't get sick. A person doesn't get hurt. Gavadamari sayoy. A person who his master sort of wants to help him. A person with connections, Lamaisa. A person with protexia. A person has protexia. He's good to go. Shaul ba'achaz ba'osolo, David b'shtayim v'lo osolo. Shaul messed up once. He made one mistake. And then all of a sudden, God got upset with him. David made two mistakes and God was forgiving. Shaul ba'achaz ma'i. What was the one place where Shaul messed up and that was too much? Ma'aseh Agag, that he left Agag, the king of Amalek, alive and he didn't kill him. And then immediately, God says, well, let's go back to for a second. What about also Nov Ir Kohanim? That, as we just mentioned a second ago, when he had Doeg Adomi kill all the Kohanim and Nov Ir Kohanim. So what about that? That was pretty bad. So why are you saying he only messed up once? Apparently he messed up twice. So Amaisa the Agog Ksiv Nichamti Kim Lachti Es Shaul LaMelech. So already after Amalek, God had said, "Yeah, I already changed my mind, and I regret having made Shaul the king." So we see that even after Shaul just messed up once by leaving Agag, the king of Amalek, alive, that was enough. That God said, all right, I had enough with Shaul. When he then killed all the Kohanim, it was already after the fact. David b'shtayim ma'ninu. What are the two things that David did wrong that no punishment was exacted from him? The Uriah da Hasata, when he sent Uriah to the front line so that he could marry Bathsheba, and also Hasata when he was convinced to count the Yidden, that he shouldn't have counted the Yidden. What about also the fact that he had a relationship with Bathsheba? So Hasam Iparu Mine, well, that he was actually punished for the relationship that he had with Bathsheba. The pasuk says Vesakivsa Yishalim Arba Asayim, that on account of the sheep, as a reference to Bathsheba, Yishalim Arba Asayim, he will be accounted for fourfold. Yeled Amnon Tamar Avshalom, that's a reference to a child that he had with Bathsheba who was killed, and his son Amnon, who was killed, who raped Tamar, who then was killed, and then Avshalom, who also the whole thing with Avshalom. So he got paid back fourfold for having a relationship with Bathsheba. So he was punished for that. However, for sending Uriah to the front lines and for counting the Yidden, he was not punished for that. But one second. Also, when it came to Hasata, when he was convinced to count the Yidden, so what do you mean he didn't get punished? What does it say? The Pasuk says, "Vayitin Hashem dever." What is the Pasuk? Dever. What was it? Yisrael me'aboker v'ad eis moed. That there was a pestilence that spread throughout all the Yidden, and lots of people died. Does it say how many people died? 70,000 people. That's a lot of people, Lemaisa. So what do you mean that he didn't get punished for counting the Yidden? So Hasam lo iparu mi gufe. Hasam nami. So Hasam lo iparu mi gufe. So, but the difference is that but by counting the Yidden, he himself didn't get punished. A lot of other people got punished, but he himself didn't get punished. But we say, but also when it came to Bathsheba, he didn't get punished directly. His children got punished. That's pretty bad, but it didn't happen to him. So Gemara says, he did taka get punished with his physically. Says that for 6 months, David HaMelech was a leper. And the Sanhedrin left and stayed away from David HaMelech, and the divine presence went away from him as well. The Pasuk says, may those who fear you come back to me, and those who know your statutes, a reference to the Sanhedrin who left him. Return to me the rejoicing of your salvation, a reference to the fact that the Shechina left him during this period as well. But one second, but there's more. It also says that, right, according to Rav, that David HaMelech received Lashon Hara. Who did he receive Lashon Hara from? When he found out that there was, that he listened to Tziva, that to say that Mephibosheth was looking to take back the kingship of his father Shaul, to bring it back to his family, and he believed the Lashon Hara. So there's also that. So Kishmuel the Amr lo kibel David Lashon Hara. So the Gemara says, well, it's like Shmuel who says that David didn't in fact accept Lashon Hara. And also according to Rab, who says that David Taka did accept Lashon Hara, well, for that he was punished. He didn't go unpunished for that. The Amr of Yehuda Amarav says of Yehuda Amarav, B'shasha Amr lo David Mephibosheth, that when David said to Mephibosheth, Amarti Atavetziva Tichalkos Asada, that you and Tziva should divide up the field, because he believed Tziva that Mephibosheth was looking to take over the kingship, and therefore he said that Mephibosheth should have to split the field with Tziva. So Yotzabasko v'Amra, a voice emanated from heaven and said, v'Amrlo, and said to David, Rechavim v'Yaravam Yichalkos Hamalchos, that because you said that Mephibosheth and Tziva should have to divide up the field, therefore Yaravam and Rechavam will divide up the kingship, and it will be divided, it will no longer be unified to the house of David. Ben Shana Shaul b'Malcho, it says that Shaul was a year into his reign. Amr Rav Huna, ki ben Shana Shlotam Tam Chay, it says Rav Huna that Shaul was like a 1-year-old in that he had never sinned. He was on that level, that he had never sinned. Maskif lo Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak as a kasha, ve'ema ki ben Shana shemeluchlach betit uvutzah. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak wanted to suggest that maybe it's taka the opposite. You know what it means that he was like a 1-year-old? It means that he was so dirty with mud and excrement. Maybe that's what it means that he was 1 year. So achviu le Rav Nachman siyuta b'chalmei. So in response, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak had terrible dreams, that this terrible angel was coming to him in his dream. Omar, to which Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak responded, I must have said something really bad. Ne'nesi lachem atzmos Shaul ben Kish. I apologize to you, the bones of Shaul ben Kish. Hadur chaza siyuta b'chalmei, but this didn't work. He still saw that terrible angel in his dream. Omar, to which, so then Shaul, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, Ne'nesi lachem atzmos Shaul ben Kish, melech Yisrael. So then he tried a second time by saying, okay, I apologize to you, the bones of Shaul ben Kish, the king of Israel. Says Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, how come the kingship of Shaul did not last? It was only 2 years. Because he was perfect. His lineage was perfect. He came from a great line. He was somebody who never sinned. Somebody like that, the kingship, he was too perfect. The kingship didn't last. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Yotzadok, in Mamidim Parnas al Tzibor, that says, Rabbi Yochanan name Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok, that we don't appoint a leader of a community, unless he's got like a box full of maggots behind him in his lineage, that if it gets to his head, if he gets a little bit haughty, we say to him, look behind you and see that box, that container full of worms and maggots. And that's a reference to David HaMelech. He comes from Rus HaMoaviyah. She's not worms and maggots, but she's a convert, as opposed to Shaul, who had this perfect lineage. So we see that a leader should come, not necessarily come from a perfect pedigree, but come from places where they'll have humility when they look behind themselves. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav says, Rav Yehuda in the name Rav, Shaul, how come Shaul was punished? Shemachol al kvodo. Interesting. He was punished because he was mochel on his kavod. How do you define mochel on his kavod? He wasn't particular about upkeeping his honor. Shneimar, as the apostle says, of Nevliyal Amru, that the yokeless people said, Ma Yoshienu Zeh Vayivazu, that how will this fellow save us? And they degraded him. V'lo yaviu lo mincha, they didn't bring to him an offering. Vayikam achrish, and he was quiet. Uchsiv, and it says, Vayal nochash amon vayichan al yavish gilad v'gomer. And the very next pasuk describes that Nachash Ammoni then went and kind of challenged Shaul. So all right, well, so interesting. So Shaul HaMelech was punished because he wasn't adamant and makpid on his kavod. Interesting. Well, Chavah, that was daf Chav Beis of Masechta Yoma. Very, very interesting daf, where we talked about the Trumas Hadeshin, how initially things were less structured, and they would decide who would do the Trumas Hadeshin by either whoever showed up Bichlal, or whoever would win the race to the top. To which they then ultimately had to get things more organized because people were getting hurt. We explained 2 reasons how come potentially people weren't interested in coming to do the Trumas Hadeshin. One was because it was viewed as like a nighttime avoda as opposed to a daytime avoda, so it was less chashuv. The other way of understanding it was that, well, maybe people would be tired. It was the first thing that was done in the Beis Hamikdash. Maybe people wanted to still to sleep in. And then we got to these like really interesting agaritas about counting the Yidden and how you're not supposed to do that. Interesting agaritas with Shaul HaMelech and David HaMelech, and how people who have protexia, they can get away with more. Shaul HaMelech, he messed up once, and all of a sudden God says, I made a mistake for appointing Shaul. Whereas David HaMelech, we see that he messed up a number of times. 2 of them he didn't even get, he got away with. So that was interesting as well. Some other interesting agaritas. Chevre, I hope that you found Daf Chaf Aleph of Masechta, or was it Chav Beis? Chav Beis of Masechta Yoma enjoyable. Have a great day. Bye-bye.